Have you ever noticed how people often step onto their spiritual path with fire in their eyes, passion in their hearts, and a sense that the entire universe is finally opening its doors to them? In the beginning, everything feels alive. They meditate and feel waves of bliss rush through their body. They see repeating numbers and call them signs. They feel energy moving, synchronicities aligning, as if life itself is whispering secrets directly to them. And in that stage, it feels impossible to imagine ever losing the connection. They swear they'll never go back to sleep again. But then something strange happens. Slowly, the glow begins to fade. The meditations don't feel as electric anymore. The synchronicities that once appeared daily grow rare. The energy that once flowed like a river now feels like a dry stream. And just like that, their fire flickers out. They slip back into old routines, old distractions, old ways of numbing themselves. You see it happen all the time. People who once swore they were awake now look exactly like they did before. It's easy to assume they just weren't serious enough, that they lacked discipline, that they didn't want it badly enough. But that's not the truth. The real reason is far more subtle and far more terrifying. They met a test, a universal test, and they didn't even realize it. They thought something had gone wrong, that they had failed, that the universe had abandoned them. But in reality, that very moment was the most important crossroad of their entire journey. Here's what almost nobody understands. The greatest test on the spiritual path doesn't come as a dramatic trial. It doesn't come as a thunderstorm or a lightning bolt from the heavens. It arrives disguised as nothing. Absolute silence. The absence of signs. The disappearance of magic. A void so empty that your mind panics and whispers, "I've lost it all. I must have done something wrong." That's the trap. And it's the exact moment where 99% of people quit. They don't fail because they're weak. They don't fail because they weren't spiritual enough. They fail because they mistake silence for abandonment, emptiness for loss. And because of that, they run. They chase the next teacher, the next practice, the next high, anything to avoid sitting in the void. And in doing so, they miss the very initiation their soul was waiting for. So if you've ever felt like your connection has vanished, if you've ever wondered, where did the magic go? Pay attention. You are not lost. You are standing at the doorway of the test almost no one passes. The question is, will you? Every spiritual journey begins with a spark. One meditation, one dream, one inexplicable moment of synchronicity, and suddenly everything feels different. The air itself seems alive. The trees seem to breathe with you. The stars wink like they're sharing secrets. For the first time in your life, you feel like the universe isn't indifferent. It's personal, intimate, whispering directly to you. This is the honeymoon phase of awakening, and if you've been through it, you know how intoxicating it feels. During this stage, you wake up every morning in awe. A simple sunrise feels like a miracle. A random encounter feels like destiny. Even the smallest signs, a feather on the sidewalk, numbers on a receipt, make you smile because you just know you're being guided. It feels as if the whole universe is holding your hand. And deep down you think, this must be what awakening is. This is it. This is forever. But here's the truth nobody tells you. That stage was never meant to last. It wasn't the destination. It was only the invitation. The signs, the synchronicities, the rush of energy, those were like breadcrumbs leading you deeper onto the path. They were the spark to light the fire, not the fire itself. And just like a spark, if it doesn't ignite something deeper, it fades. Then comes the shift. One day you sit in meditation and feel nothing. The bliss that once poured through your body is gone. You look for synchronicities, but the numbers stop showing up. The conversations that once felt magical now feel ordinary again. Slowly, the magic dissolves. And with it, your certainty begins to crumble. You start asking, did I lose it? Did I do something wrong? Was it all just in my head? This is the moment most people don't understand. They assume the fading spark means the journey is over. But in truth, this is where the real journey begins. The honeymoon was the universe knocking on your door, showing you what's possible. The silence that follows is the universe asking, now that you've tasted the magic, can you keep walking when the magic goes quiet? Think of it like falling in love. At first, every glance, every word, every touch feels electric. You live in a dream. But eventually, the rush calms, the fireworks fade. And what's left isn't constant fireworks, it's the choice to stay, to trust, to build something real. Awakening is the same. The early spark is the infatuation. The silence that follows is the test of devotion. So when the magic fades, don't mistake it for abandonment. It's not the end of the fire. It's the moment where you learn how to keep the flame alive without needing constant sparks. And that's where almost everyone fails. Then one day it happens. Without warning, the universe that once felt alive suddenly goes quiet. The synchronicities vanish. The meditation that once made you feel like floating in light now feels heavy, dull, lifeless. You sit in prayer and hear nothing but your own echo. You walk in nature expecting that deep connection, and instead you feel like a stranger in a foreign land. It's as if the entire cosmos that once held you so tenderly has dropped you without explanation. At first you brush it off. Maybe it's just an off day. But days turn into weeks, weeks turn into months, and still the silence remains. The bliss, the signs, the magic, all gone. Your heart begins to ache with questions. Did I do something wrong? Did I lose my awakening? Was it all just my imagination? Panic creeps in. Desperation follows. You start grasping for something, anything that will bring the feeling back. Another book, another teacher, another practice, another high. But no matter how hard you chase, the silence doesn't break. This is where most seekers turn back. The silence feels like betrayal. They mistake it for punishment, for failure, for abandonment. They think the universe has closed its doors. And so they retreat to the comfort of old patterns, old distractions, old ways of numbing themselves. Netflix, social media, endless busyness. Anything to avoid facing the terrifying emptiness that now stares them down. But here's the truth. The silence is not a mistake. It's not abandonment. It's not the universe turning away. The silence is the test. The void is the doorway. The emptiness is the initiation. It's the universe asking you the question no one wants to face. Can you love me when I'm quiet? Can you trust me when I give you nothing to hold on to? Can you stay faithful when you feel absolutely nothing at all? Almost no one passes this moment. Not because they're weak, not because they're unworthy, but because the human mind is addicted to proof. We crave feelings, fireworks, reassurance. We want the universe to keep saying, I'm here, in 1,000 little ways. But real awakening isn't about needing proof. It's about knowing without proof. It's about trusting the bond so deeply that silence itself becomes the confirmation. So when the silence appears, understand, you are not broken. You are not abandoned. You are being invited into the deepest test of your journey, the one that almost no one recognizes until it's too late. At first, you brush it off. Maybe it's just an off day. But days turn into weeks. Weeks turn into months. And still, the silence remains. The bliss, the signs, the magic, all gone. Your heart begins to ache with questions. Did I do something wrong? Did I lose my awakening? Was it all just my imagination? Panic creeps in. Desperation follows. You start grasping for something, anything, that will bring the feeling back. Another book, another teacher, another practice, another high. But no matter how hard you chase, the silence doesn't break. This is where most seekers turn back. The silence feels like betrayal. They mistake it for punishment, for failure, for abandonment. They think the universe has closed its doors. And so they retreat to the comfort of old patterns, old distractions, old ways of numbing themselves. Netflix, social media, endless busyness. Anything to avoid facing the terrifying emptiness that now stares them down. But here's the truth. The silence is not a mistake. It's not abandonment. It's not the universe turning away. The silence is the test. The void is the doorway. The emptiness is the initiation. It's the universe asking you the question no one wants to face. Can you love me when I'm quiet? Can you trust me when I give you nothing to hold on to? Can you stay faithful when you feel absolutely nothing at all? Almost no one passes this moment. Not because they're weak, not because they're unworthy, but because the human mind is addicted to proof. We crave feelings, fireworks, reassurance. We want the universe to keep saying, "I'm here," in 1,000 little ways. But real awakening isn't about needing proof. It's about knowing without proof. It's about trusting the bond so deeply that silence itself becomes the confirmation. So when the silence appears, understand, you are not broken. You are not abandoned. You are being invited into the deepest test of your journey, the one that almost no one recognizes until it's too late. On the surface, silence feels like nothing. Days go by and you don't feel the rush of energy you once knew. Weeks pass and the synchronicities stay hidden. You sit in meditation and it feels like staring into a blank wall. To the mind, it looks like failure. To the ego, it feels like death. But beneath that stillness, something extraordinary is happening. Imagine planting a seed in the soil. For weeks, maybe months, you see nothing. The ground looks dead, the surface unchanged. But beneath the soil, the seed is cracking open, roots are spreading, life is exploding, quietly, invisibly. One day, when the time is right, a green shoot will break the surface. But if you judged by appearances alone, you'd swear nothing was happening. That's exactly what the silence of awakening is like.
While you sit there thinking nothing is moving, the silence is burning away your dependency on feelings. It's dissolving your need for constant proof. It's pulling the training wheels off your spiritual bicycle so you can finally ride on your own. The universe isn't abandoning you. It's teaching you to stand, to walk, to trust without needing your hand held every second. Think about it. If every single prayer you spoke was instantly answered with fireworks, would you ever learn patience? If every meditation came with bliss, would you ever discover the stillness beneath feelings? If every day was filled with signs, would you ever know what it means to trust without seeing? The silence is the teacher of maturity. It's where faith hardens into something unshakable. Yes, it feels empty. Yes, it feels like nothing. But nothing is the disguise truth wears when it's working beneath the surface. The void isn't a grave, it's a womb. What feels like death is actually gestation. What feels like absence is actually presence in its deepest form. So, if you're in the silence right now, don't assume you're stuck. You are not withering. You are rooting. You are not being erased. You are being rebuilt. And one day soon, without warning, you'll break the surface and realize the silence was never silence at all. It was the sound of your soul growing strong enough to stand on its own. So, what does it mean to pass the test? The test that almost no one sees coming? The silence that swallows certainty? It doesn't mean you'll wake up tomorrow bursting with bliss. It doesn't mean synchronicities will suddenly flood back in. Passing the test is simpler and far more profound. It means you stay. You don't run. You don't quit. You don't demand constant proof. You trust. You love. You surrender, especially when nothing in you feels like doing so. To pass, you stop chasing the next high. You no longer run from teacher to teacher or practice to practice, desperate to recreate the magic. Instead, you allow the silence to be your teacher. You sit with it. You let it feel uncomfortable. You let it strip away your cravings for reassurance. And as you sit there, raw and restless, you begin to realize that the very thing you thought was absence is the deepest form of presence. Passing the test also means you stop digging up the soil. When you plant a seed, you don't keep pulling it out to check if it's growing. You trust the process, even when you see nothing. In the same way, you trust your awakening, even when it feels lifeless. You refuse to mistake the quiet for the end. You choose to believe that what feels like nothing is the exact place where transformation is taking root. And above all, passing the test means you keep loving. Even if your prayers feel empty, you keep praying. Even if your heart feels numb, you keep loving others, loving life, loving yourself. That love becomes the bridge that carries you through the silence into unshakable faith. When you reach this place, something extraordinary happens. You no longer panic when the universe is quiet. You no longer beg for signs. You walk in steady trust whether the sky is filled with fireworks or covered in clouds. That is the shift from temporary awakening to permanent transformation. That is when you pass the test. So let me ask you, where are you right now? Are you in the silence, in the void, in the space where nothing makes sense? If so, don't give up. Don't run back to distractions. Don't mistake this for failure. You are closer than you think. If these words speak to you, take a deep breath and choose to stay. Then share your experience in the comments. Subscribe so you don't walk this path alone, and join me in the next video where we'll go deeper into how to embody this trust in everyday life. Your silence is not your ending. It's your initiation. And the fact that you're here, still listening, is proof you're already passing the test.